Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu. OpenAI Agents SDK, Episode 1 of 18. Most AI agent frameworks force you to learn a dozen new abstractions, custom syntax, and heavy object hierarchies. You spend more time fighting the framework than writing your actual application logic. Today, we look at Beyond Swarm, the core primitives. When developers hear about a new agent framework, they often expect a massive ecosystem with a steep learning curve. The OpenAI Agents SDK is exactly the opposite. It is an evolution of the experimental Swarm library. Swarm proved that you could build complex interactions with very simple concepts. The Agents SDK takes that philosophy and hardens it for production use. It is deliberately lightweight and entirely Python first. The architecture rests on two fundamental design principles, exposing very few core primitives and keeping the execution highly customizable. You do not need a complex graph of nodes or a proprietary declarative language to build an agent here. The SDK gives you a tiny set of building blocks. The foundational piece is the agent object. You define an agent by providing it with a name and a set of instructions. If you want to build a simple history tutor, you instantiate an agent, name it history tutor, and pass it a text string instructing it to teach historical events clearly and accurately. That is your entire agent configuration. There is no hidden state and no complicated initialization. But an agent by itself is just a static data structure. It does nothing until it is executed. This is where it gets interesting. Execution is handled entirely by a separate component called the runner. The runner manages the complete interaction loop between your local code and the remote OpenAI API. In a typical application, you would have to write a custom while loop to check if the model wants to call a tool, parse the response, execute the tool, and send the result back to the model. The runner abstracts all of that away. To start the process, you pass your history tutor agent and the user prompt into the run method. The runner takes over from there. It sends the prompt to the model. If the model decides it needs to look up a specific historical date, it will request a tool call. The runner pauses, executes the local Python function you provided for that tool, captures the return value, and sends it right back to the model. It repeats this cycle automatically. It only returns control to your application when the model determines the task is complete and generates a final text response. This strict separation between the static agent definition and the active runner execution is what makes the SDK so customizable. Because tools are just standard Python functions with regular type hints, and the agent is just a plain object, you maintain total control over your application flow. You can easily inject custom logging, metrics, or error handling around the runner without overwriting deep framework classes. You are just writing Python. The true value of this SDK is not in what it adds, but in what it removes. It gets out of your way and lets you orchestrate language models using plain, readable code. If you want to help support the show, you can search for DevStories EU on Patreon. That is your lot for this one. Catch you next time.